Hey there everybody, Pete Pardo here from Sea of Tranquility. Welcome to another edition of our Top 10 Songs. Today we're going to look at one of the icons in the history of progressive rock. In my opinion, the band who pretty much put it on the map. We're talking about the mighty King Crimson. So, a lot of really strong albums with a ton of great material. This probably was just as hard, if not harder, than the Jethro Tull show that I did yesterday. It's funny how after I got done with the Tull show, I figured all the time put into that to whittle all those great songs down to a top 10. I thought to myself, well, I don't think this could ever get any harder than this. And here I am a day later and realizing that the King Crimson catalog is pretty fucking stellar too, filled with great songs, so many great songs, and great albums that, again, another one of those bands where it's almost hard to pull the songs out of the albums because some of the albums are so damn strong. So what I did was I kind of took a look at all the albums and took out my favorite tracks from each one of them and amassed a pretty long list. And then I said, all right, which one of these kind of mean the most to me? And as it turns out, what you're going to notice in a minute, that the 70s, late 60s and 70s era of the band is a little bit more near and dear to me than the 80s and beyond. Not that I don't like the 80s material or the 90s and the more recent material, because I do quite a bit, but when it comes down to my top 10, none of the Blue and onward era of the band actually made up my top 10, although some of those tunes sat pretty close. So I'm going to go through my top 10, then I'm going to give you some honorable mentions. You'll find a lot of really cool favorites in the honorable mentions. So let's jump start here with number 10, Easy Money. All right, I've always been pretty much in love with the John Wetton, Bill Bruford, David Cross era of the band, just those 3 studio albums they did are just so damn spectacular. And I always love Easy Money, kind of a cool rocker of a tune, but it's got all those kind of King Crimson instrumental parts that we've loved over the years. So that comes at number 10. Number 9, and I contemplated putting this a little bit higher, and in fact, I actually had this out of my top 10 at one point, and another song in its place, and then I realized that I didn't have this tune in my top 10. I said, wait a second, there's just no way this song cannot be in my top 10, so one of them had to go. I'm talking about the title track to the Red album, just a wonderful, metallic, savage, ominous piece that long was one of my favorite tunes from King Crimson before I really got deep into their catalog over the last 20 years or so. So it's still sitting in my top 10, probably a little lower than I would have said maybe 10 or 20 years ago, but I still love the tune to death and it's got to be here. So number 9, Red. Number 8, off of the Starless and Bible Black album, The Night Watch, which is one of those tunes that just, it combines a quality that, especially the 70s version, even the 80s and onwards versions of King Crimson always did so well, is that combine those beautiful soundscapes and instrumental passages with moments of violent, brutal savagery, right? And the Night Watch just has some just gorgeous guitar work from Robert Fripp on it. And just one of those tunes that I hear and I'm just oh, the Night Watch, just so great. So that comes in at number 8. Coming in at number 7, probably one of the most well-known songs from this band. Again, another one of those tunes that almost didn't make it in my top 10. I'm just it kind of has to be there because it's such a great song. In the Court of the Crimson King, okay, one of the 2 most known songs from the band, both from that same debut album. Court of the Crimson King is just so gorgeous. I love Greg Lake's vocals on it. Really do. That one then moves on to number 6, which of course is 21st Century Schizoid Band. Both of those songs, well played, well known by so many people, but they're like that for a reason. And I could not omit either one of them from this top 10, even though there's so many other great songs from this band. 21st Century Schizoid Man. I mean, when that album first came out, granted I was just a wee little kid at the time, but I remember the first time I heard that song, I was like, wow, what is this, right? Pretty hard hitting for the time. So that's my number 7. Actually, that's my number 6, sorry. Coming in at number 5, also off that same album, the debut in the Court of Crimson King, The Devil's Triangle. Actually, sorry, no, Devil's Triangle is from In the Wake of Poseidon. Devil's Triangle. What a mesmerizing, ominous tune, which features the glorious and pretty spooky on this track, Mellotron. This is just this tune that just bubbles and boils and percolates, building with tension and drama and ominous passages of, like I said, the Mellotron, just incredible here. It's just amazing how much King Crimson did with the Mellotron back on those, first handful of albums. Great, great stuff. The Devil's Triangle. I really like the In the Wake of Poseidon album, too. It's really, really good stuff. That gives way to number 4, Lark's Tongues in Aspic Part 2, off, of course, the Lark's Tongue in Aspic album, which is probably my favorite King Crimson album. The Part 2 ends the album. Those great metallic riffs, okay, which then morph, you got the violin from David Cross and the keyboards and the, more atmospheric passages. Just great, great stuff. Number 3, Starless. I look at 2 of the songs that make up my top 3. Starless is one of them. Very much a song that's more about the vocals than anything else. And I think, especially early on in King Crimson's history, John Wetton and Greg Lake, man, did they contribute some really good emotional vocals. I think Starless is just a beautiful, gorgeous song. It's long been one of my favorite King Crimson songs. It's just so representative of everything that this band did so well. All right, just really, really good. So that's my number 3. Coming in at number 2, Lark's Tongues in Aspic Part 1. Okay, the big long epic that kicks off that album, that goes through all these different twists and turns, and it's savage, it's haunting, it's beautiful, it's melodic, it's dissonant, it's got kind of everything, guitars and mellotron and violin and bass and drums, man, Bruford and company, and just great, great stuff. I love both those Lark's tunes to death, and wouldn't have been interesting if they would have kind of put them all together in one long, 20-some-odd minute track. But either way, they're both perfect on their own, the way they are, and the way they kind of begin the album and end the album. All right, so we are at number 1. Number 1 was the easiest one to place on this list because it's a tune that I just have loved to death for decades and decades, and it's a tune that gets me every time I hear it. It's just so beautiful. It's so emotional, and it's got, for my money, the greatest Greg Lake vocal of all time. I'm talking about Epitaph. Just the song almost puts me to tears. In fact, when I saw King Crimson last year, it was the first time I had ever heard the band play that song, and it literally brought me to tears. That's how it was just incredible, incredible. The Mellotron's great, the vocals are great. It's just a hauntingly, hauntingly beautiful song that I think will be one of my favorite prog songs probably till as long as I'm on this earth. That's just how great it is. It's just a wonderful song that just sends beautiful chills all throughout my body, and just that warm, fuzzy feeling you get, right? When you have a song that you just love so much, but more for just the melodies and the vocals type of thing. But, the music is still great too. It's just a perfectly constructed song and that I love to death. So that's my number 1. So honorable mentions, you're probably asking. Well, get ready, strap in. We got a lot of them. So a lot of stuff from the 80s and on here, because I love a lot of that stuff. It's just not enough to move any of these tunes out from my top 10. That's the thing. So, honorable mentions. Here we go. Level 5. All right. Great song. They're playing that live now, which is great to see. Talk about Savage Crimson. That is a perfect example. They've got so many kick-ass instrumental songs and improvs. Amazing. Vroom. Love Vroom to death. Thrack. Okay. Some of that 80s and 90s stuff, man. Just so bombastic and heavy. And just, crazy instrumental stuff. 3 of a Perfect Pair. I liked some of the early 80s King Crimson, kind of quirky pop / kind of new wave / prog stuff. They were very accessible, but yet very complex. Neil and Jack and Me is another one I love quite a bit. Neurotica. Doesn't get much better than that. Sheltering Sky. I love a lot of stuff from the Discipline album. In fact, it really hurt me not to put any of those tunes in my top 10, but I could not unseat some of the ones that were there. So Thela Hunjinji, man, I love that song. Just great stuff. What an arrangement. Indiscipline, another song they're playing live now. That is a monstrous, ominous, slow builder of a song. I just love the building tension in that song, and then kapow, right? Whew. Mate Kudasai, another gorgeous tune from that band and from that album. Frame by Frame, great tune. Love the kind of weaving arrangement on that. Elephant Talk is great too. I always dug Elephant Talk. One More Red Nightmare, going back a ways, right? Providence, Fallen Angel, John Wetton, man. Fracture, Starless and Bible Black, Great Deceiver. That's a really good driving hard rock tune from them. Lament, The Mincer, another really cool, like kind of creepy improv instrumental from them. The Talking Drum, gotta have that here, right? Exiles, Ladies of the Road, The Letters. I like those two, Lizard and Island, those two albums. They're kind of quirky. I know it wasn't crazy about them way back in the day, but I've really grown to love them over the years. Sailor's Tale, I love that. Formentera Lady, I'm a big fan of that song. The next one, Circus. I actually had Circus Circus is the one that I had in my top 10, and it was in at number 9. And then I was looking through, I was putting together my honorable mentions, like, holy shit, I left Red out of the top 10. So, sorry, Circus, you got bumped in favor of Red, but Circus for me is probably number 11 or close to it, because I really am a big fan of the Circus album. I like that kind of little jazzy, quirky prog thing going on there. It's haunting, it's kind of folky too. I love it. The Epic Sweet Lizard, that's pretty damn cool. I've grown to love that a lot more over the years. Pictures of a City, of course, off of the Wake Up Poseidon album. The title track in the Wake Up Poseidon, that's another one that I really wanted to push onto my top 10 list. That's kind of like almost like the younger sibling of Epitaph for me, but it just missed out. And last but not least, off the debut album, Moonchild, another really great song off of that In the Core of the Crimson King album. So there you have it. My honorable mentions for King Crimson. Let's run down the top 10 one more time. Starting at number 1, Epitaph. Number 2, Lark's Tongues and Aspic Part 1. Number 3, Starless. Number 4, Lark's Tongues and Aspic Part 2. Number 5, The Devil's Triangle. Number 6, 21st Century Schizoid Man, Do Not Listen to the Dog. Number 7, In the Core of the Crimson King. Number 8, The Night Watch. Number 9, Red. And last but not least, coming in at number 10, Easy Money. So there you have it. King Crimson, top 10 songs. Go out and pull out all your King Crimson albums and figure out what your top 10 is. Let me know in the comments section below. I'm interested to hear what everybody else picks. I want to see how many of you are more kind of loyal to the 70s stuff, or how many of you mix in a lot of the 80s and beyond into your top 10s. Be interesting to see what we come up with here. So anyway, visit us on the web at www.seatranquility.org. We're on Facebook, we're on Twitter, of course, we're here on the mighty YouTube. So lots of good stuff coming up. We got more deep cuts on classic albums coming up, a lot more of these top 10s. I think the next one you're going to see is probably Rush. I'm going to work on that over the weekend. I'm going to do a Queen one, I'm going to do one on Marillion, Thin Lizzy. One of you wanted to see Metallica. I might do a Metallica one too. Might do a Slayer one, Gentle Giant, Grand Funk Railroad. All sorts of great stuff. There's so many bands I can do. I'm going to try and tackle as many as I can. So till next time, guys, be good. Also, we got coming up this weekend our next installment of the Questions and Answers show. So if you haven't submitted your questions to the November 17th show that I did, go back to that video, add them into the comments and feedback, and I'll try and get to as many of them as I possibly can. Looking to shoot that probably tomorrow. So be on the lookout for that. So for Tala, because you know she's here, I am Pete Pardo. We'll see you again real soon, guys. Take care. Bye-bye.